everyone, today I have the all-new Nikon Z6III. Today we're going to be doing a hands-on review with this camera for both photo and video. I have a whole bunch of different lenses that I'll be using today, and we're going to do a portrait photo shoot, so let's get started. The Nikon Z6III is a 24.5 megapixel full-frame hybrid mirrorless camera body with great photo capabilities and a stacked feature set for video. As usual, I'm going to be sharing lots of on-location examples of using this camera, and also please keep in mind I'm using a pre-production camera body. This camera features people, animal, vehicle, and airplane autofocus options. Something I really enjoy about Nikon is they also have an auto subject detection setting, so you don't have to manually change it when you're interchangeably capturing people and/or animals in the frame. For the video autofocus test, I'm making use of people subject detection in full-time autofocus mode, and I'm letting the camera do all the work so we can see how it performs. The same goes for stills mode during the photo shoot, but instead there, I'm using people AF and continuous autofocus with auto area AF. The autofocus of the Z6III is going to be reliable in many photography situations. I found that the autofocus point was consistently sticky on the subject even while we were moving around or when we jumped in and out of the frame. I used two lenses for this test, the 24-70mm f2.8s and the 50mm f1.2s. On the prime lens at f1.2, you can see focus slipping a little as I'm moving really close and fast to the camera, but it is quick at refinding me again. I also set the camera's AF tracking sensitivity to 7, low, because sometimes when you're taking photos of a subject, let's say a couple during their wedding ceremony, and someone walks in front of them, you don't want the focus to be jumping to that person. I think it did a great job at keeping focus sticky on me while Dan tried his best to distract it. I could see myself relying on this to get the job done out in the field. In stills mode, this setting is called focus tracking with lock-on. I also have some test shots of animal AF with Evie and Olive. When Evie is stationary, it is consistent at keeping focus on her eye. When Olive is walking and moving around, it does a good job for the most part keeping track on her, but I found I struggled to find her sometimes when she was further away from the camera. So even though she has her face clearly facing the camera, AF doesn't catch her until she starts moving towards me. Once it gets focused though, it's great at staying sticky on the subject. I also want to say thank you to Nikon Australia for getting this camera in my hands early. All thoughts and opinions in this video are completely my own, and they don't ask me to say or do anything.
Oh, that looks so nice.
I'm starting off this photo shoot on the Nikkor 50mm f1.2s lens, which I've been really loving recently. I have a photo shoot I uploaded a couple of weeks ago using it on the Nikon Z8, and that video is up on my channel if you want to see more photos with it. The Z6III features a mechanical and electronic shutter, and I'm making use of the mechanical shutter for this entire photo shoot. We do actually have RAW support available for this camera already, which is so nice to see. Sometimes when you're an early user of a new camera, you'll have to shoot in JPEG as it can take a while for RAW support to be added to editing software, but these files are ready to go. Throughout this shoot, I'm sharing a 100% crop of the JPEG straight out of camera and then my edited version of that photo afterwards. You have the ability to shoot up to 14 frames per second with a mechanical shutter and up to 60 FPS with electronic full resolution. When using 14 frames per second to the CF Express Type B slot, you can shoot 200 images before the camera stops you in either RAW or RAW plus JPEG mode. You can repress the shutter instantly after and it's ready to go again. I was able to continue doing this more than 10 times and the camera had no indications of slowing down, so the buffer is great and seems technically endless. You just have to repress the shutter every 200 images. In electronic shutter, utilizing 60 FPS, you can take around 380 images until the buffer is full and you need to release the shutter. When you shoot again immediately afterwards, it takes a shorter burst of photos of around 10 to 20 images since it's still writing to the card. Also, just for fun, in electronic shutter and 30 FPS, I was able to take around 1,800 images before the buffer filled. So overall, I'd say that's great performance.
Let's get some water. So we'll stand maybe just here. That looks so nice with the sun actually. It's not too strong. And I'll keep an eye on the water behind you too.
The files produced by the Z6III are at the high standard you would expect from a professional full-frame camera like this. Since we had plenty of light to work with, I am making use of base ISO of 100 for all these portraits, which is extremely clean. I do also have a low light test later in this video where you can see a photo example at every single ISO this camera is capable of.
Wow. That's okay. I'm looking, I can see it in the reflection of the screen.
Oh really?
Yeah, so I was keeping an eye. Ooh, you know what, actually, we could sit on those stairs. That will look nice. If you want to sit like right on the edge, maybe on this one here. Oh yeah, let's do the water. But we'll revisit that, I like that.
Similarly to our video AF test I shared earlier, and I'll have more for you to look at later in this review, autofocus was super easy to rely on for this portrait session. I found the Z6III was actively keeping the focus point on Pearl's eye throughout the photo shoot, as you can see if you keep an eye on the picture-in-picture. That is exactly what I'm seeing as I'm taking photos. I found the autofocus ratio to be excellent, especially considering I was using an open aperture of f1.2 almost the entire time. I like to do this as it's more challenging for the equipment and we can really see what it's capable of. Now I'm switching lenses over to the Nikkor 85mm f1.2s. I can see this camera being pretty popular amongst semi-pros and professional photographers who take on regular clients. With the 24 megapixel sensor, I can see this camera being a great option for, but not limited to, weddings for example, fashion photographers, headshots, and portrait work along those lines.
We should do something with the rocks there too. Oh yes, that's so cool. Okay, this is a full body shot here. And then do you want to hold up the dress like as if you're about to take a step, like, yeah, that's cool.
Let's check out the build. The Z6III weighs 760 grams, and as usual, here are some weight comparisons to similar camera bodies. The Z6 II weighs 705 grams, the Sony a7 IV is 659 grams, and the Lumix S5 II is 740 grams. So there's nothing out of the ordinary there, it's just about the same weight as its competitors. The Z6III has a fantastic hand grip, which is super comfortable to hold, and the camera overall feels really great in the hands when using it out on location with various different Nikon S lenses. They've kept mostly the same button configuration as the Z6 II, with some changes including the playback button is now switched with the release mode button, which I really like because I'm not a fan of reaching my thumb or finger all the way across the screen for playback. They have also shuffled around the record, ISO, and exposure comp buttons at the top here too. There are also two function buttons at the front of the camera. In terms of ports, we have a 3.5mm headphone and mic jack, USB-C, full-sized HDMI, and a remote port. There are dual card slots, one for CF Express Type-B and the other is UHS-2 SD. Finally, this camera only has a flippy screen. Considering it is a photo and very video heavy camera body, and also a camera body considered for professional use, I would have liked to have seen a combined flip and tilt screen personally. Moving on to video, I briefly mentioned that we have a pretty stacked feature set when it comes to video in the Z6III, and let me tell you, Nikon are not playing around. We have the ability to record in up to 6K 60p in NRAW with no crop. Pretty impressive. These are all the main video file types we have to work with, and I'm going to quickly scroll through all the options in the menu here because there are so many to choose from, so please pause to have a closer look at any you're interested in. I also have lots of on-location examples of these file types, so keep an eye on the labels I've added in the top left-hand corner too to see what they all look like. There are just a few I want to outline today. First of all, 6K is available only in NRAW up to 60p and ProRes RAW up to 30p. NRAW is so versatile to work with in post. The highlights you see that are all blown out here are actually completely recoverable, just at the cost of a whole lot of data. If you're using a 512GB card, you'll be able to get about 18 minutes worth of footage in NRAW 6K 60p and about 13.5 minutes in ProRes RAW at 30p. Since we are talking about file sizes and recording times, I also want to add that 5.3K ProRes 4:2 at 30p will get you just under 34 minutes of recording time, while in H.265 at any frame rate or resolution, you'll have a much more relaxed 2 hours and 5 minutes with a 512GB card. So as you can see, there are lots of options when it comes to video quality in the Z6III, and all of these I'm sharing with you in my video are in full frame, by the way, with no crop, which is super impressive. It's really nice to see that Nikon have implemented this into the camera. While I can see this being a popular photography camera, I think it's going to be equally as popular for video work too. The Z6III is definitely a camera that can be used by prosumer and professional videographers alike, considering the range of internal recording options that are available and the quality of the final footage. For me personally, if I was using this camera for my professional video work, I would still be filming in H.265 the majority of the time, as it's the right quality versus size compromise. However, for certain occasions, I would switch over to NRAW or ProRes to capture specific shots. The video files look really beautiful out of this camera. We have rich colors and the footage is sharp and crispy. It's also easy to work with in post for color grading. N-Log has a base ISO of 800, but I find the footage still look quite clean. All the shots of myself and Pearl are filmed with vibration reduction set to normal. This camera has up to 8 stops of VR stabilization. While it does help make the footage look a bit smoother, sometimes the wider your lens, so in the vlogging shots coming up in a second, I can see some wobbling corners in the frame. This camera does have electronic VR, which can only be used in UHD and HD 60p and below, and it induces a slight crop.
It is time to do a vlogging test on the Z6III, so that is the footage you're watching right now. So I have vibration reduction set to normal, and I'm currently using the 17 to 28mm f2.8 lens. So I'm on the 17mm end with the camera on Adobe. This is what it looks like when it's kind of close towards my body, and this is what it looks like with my arm fully outstretched. So I'll walk around a little bit so we can see what that looks like. And now in this clip, I have VR set to sport, and I'm just gonna try and retrace my exact footsteps so we can see what the footage looks like. Again, I'm at 17mm with the camera, or with my arm towards my body, and this is what it looks like with my arm outstretched. My arm does shake a little bit when I have it fully outstretched in both the clips. Next up, we're gonna do a microphone test. Now we're gonna test out the microphone. So first of all, I've got the lav mic, which you've been listening to this whole time. So I'm gonna switch over now to the external microphone I have plugged into the Z6III, and all of a sudden the frogs behind me just started going off. They're super loud. So we'll get an idea for that audio. And now I've switched over to the internal microphone of the Z6III. So the frogs have totally stopped, but I still have that traffic noise in the far background. I have the frequency response set to wide as well. We'll test out the next one in the next clip. But yeah, I'll just talk a little bit. There was a bit of a breeze and now it's totally quiet. So yeah, we'll see how much my voice cuts through in this audio. Last but not least, I have frequency response set to vocal range, which is great because I feel like that traffic noise just got a bit louder. So again, we'll see if my voice sounds the same, if it cuts through better, if you can hear that background noise. I don't know what happened to the frogs. They just like completely stopped in the middle of that last clip. But yeah, there we go. Microphone test done. Last but not least, I captured some photos of Dan with the entire ISO range. These are the JPEGs straight out of camera with noise reduction set to normal. In my opinion, up to ISO 5000 is easily usable. It's clean and sharp. Up to 10, 12,000, it's still usable if you really need it, but we are starting to lose sharpness and detail, and you lose even more detail the further up you go. That's all I have for today's video on the Nikon Z6III. Let me know what you think of the camera and which ones were your favorite photos down in the comments below, because I really love hearing from you all. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I'll see you all next time. Bye.